Greetings my dear friends, Dragon here once again. If it's your first time finding the channel, thank you for stumbling onto it, and do please consider clicking the red button and subscribing if you like what I do. Okay, carrying on with the Shawscope Volume 2 reviews, this time around looking at disc 6, which is dedicated entirely to the wonderful My Young Auntie, shot in 1980 and released at the very beginning of 1981, directed by my favourite director, Leung, and starring the absolutely fantastic Caraway with able support by Hsiao. This is a film that I've seen many times. One that I had back in the old Made in Hong Kong VHS days. It was one of their first wave of Shaw Brothers releases in the UK on VHS, and then upgraded in time to the Celestial Remastered DVD in the early noughties. This is the Taiwanese version, which is still pretty widely available. But as everybody is obviously aware, if you're watching this, it forms a part of Shawscope Volume 2. Very happy that it's had its own kind of dedicated disc, and we can remove our review copy, put this in here to make things a bit more interesting. So in terms of Leung's filmography, it sits just in between Return to the 36th Chamber, which is also on Volume 2, and then the wonderful Marshall Club, which came out later in 1981, also starring Caraway, which is available pretty widely in the UK and the US thanks to 88 Films. There's already a great Blu-ray release of that. But today we are looking entirely at My Young Auntie. If we grab over our book, we can take a little look at the page for it here and see the artwork that's been created by Julian Yates for the set. We'll get to extras in a little minute. And then in the booklet, we get our original Hong Kong release poster, and then some notes on the film, which I will not be going for today. So if you've not seen the film, essentially it's a relatively simple plot. We have a wealthy elderly landowner who's very worried about his estate falling into the hands of his unscrupulous younger brother, the younger brother being played by Leung Wei, who's our main villain for the piece, with his young son pretty spectacularly played by Yun Tak. To stop this happening, the wealthy landlord decides to marry at the last minute before he passes away, and marries the very young, very beautiful Caraway, here playing the character Cheng Tai Nan. And so she's going to basically take control of the estate and ensure that it passes over to the more stable brother, played by the director himself, played by Lau Kar-leung. So she essentially takes control of the estate, then travels to Canton, travels to Guangzhou, in order to kind of make this transition. And when she's there, most of the film kind of plays out when she's arrived at the Yu family, so at Lau Kar-leung and his son, played by the equally fantastic Hsiao. So while she's staying with them, really that's where the bulk of the film takes place, as she kind of comes to grips with the fact that she's now an elder. She's the auntie to the much older Lau Kar-leung, and really having to kind of try and kind of get to terms with her place in this family, and frequently butting heads with the young and kind of pretty feisty Hsiao, who's just back from studying in Hong Kong with a head full of Western ideas, language interspersed with English, and a huge amount of mischief. And so most of the comedy plays out really in the dynamic between those two. It's kind of like an odd couple type setup, not odd couple in terms of Sammo Hung and Lau Kar-wing movie, but the traditional odd couple. So Jack Lemmon, Walter Matthau, we have one older, kind of more grumpy character, and then one younger, more feisty, more ridiculous character. In this case, the elder is about the same age, it's Caraway, and then the younger, more feisty character is Hsiao, so that the son of Lau Kar-leung's character. Whilst they're staying together at the house, Caraway's character is introduced to a whole bunch of elements that she's not encountered before, kind of coming as she does from rural China. So she's going to get to see the city for the first time, and kind of getting to see other people her own age. And so there's a masked ball, but halfway through the film, quite a lot of action takes place. Kind of more comedy action, but still pretty good. That's where you'll find Gordon Liu's cameo and some slight musical elements. And it's during this period that the villain Leung Wei and his son Yun Tak make their play to try and steal the deeds, and then ultimately it's up to Caraway and Hsiao to try and go to his villa, get through the traps that he's laid out, and try and steal this back. And in the process she gets captured, so it's up to Hsiao and the other older uncles to try and kind of go and rescue her and save the day. And that's pretty much the plot. So like I said, not that complicated, but relatively sophisticated for the Shaw's movies at this sort of point in time. It's not just the straight kind of normal revenge type movie, or there's not a huge amount of training in this. There's a small training sequence with Caraway having to run the elder uncles through their paces, but it's not the main focus of the film at all. A lot of it is really dedicated to the comedy, which for me absolutely works. I really love the play between Caraway and Hsiao. They've known each other for a long time, been in many movies together, and they play off of each other really fantastically. Lau Kar-leung is there also as a sort of second straight man, but also the voice of reason to his young son. And there's a lot of kind of heart in the relationship between him and his son, played by Hsiao Ho. And just all round really, really works for me. I think the comedy really hits home. I still find it funny no matter how many times that I've seen the film, and the action just kind of continues to ramp up. So by the time that you get to the last reel and the last kind of act is really as good as any other Lau Kar-leung martial arts movies. There's some pretty spectacular displays, including a really great one-on-one fight between Lau Kar-leung and Wang Lung-wei, that kind of short that closes out the film towards the end. But yeah, just absolutely fantastic, an absolute joy. So if it's a film that you've not seen, you'll really, really enjoy diving into it. Wasn't the only time that Lau Kar-leung gave Caraway a sort of star vehicle. They also made Lady as the Boss a year or two later, which for me is not quite as good. Still a great movie, but My Young Auntie is an absolute classic. I'd put it up way up there with any of the other entries in Lau Kar-leung's kind of filmography. A lot of people do have issue with the comedy elements. For me, it's never really bothered me. His films have always had comedy in them. His first movie, For Shaw, Spiritual Boxer, was very much a kung fu comedy. You could argue it kind of kicked off the kung fu comedy genre because it came before Drunken Master and Snake and the Eagle's Shadow, and it's certainly, those movies borrow an awful lot from the kind of the flow and the beats from the Spiritual Boxer. So he'd been doing comedy for a long time. It doesn't feel out of place to me here, and it absolutely works. And the two main leads really are the thing that ties the film together for me. I could watch Caraway and watch Hsiao Ho all day, every day, quite happily. It's great seeing Mad Monkey Kung Fu on the set as well, because that's the other great Hsiao Ho vehicle. But here he's in more of a supporting role to Caraway. Extras wise, it's a pretty loaded disc. We get quite a lot of stuff on here, and we get a pretty wonderful select scene commentary from Tony Raines. Now this doesn't run for the whole length of the film. It's about 46 minutes worth, and it automatically jumps to the points that he's recorded commentary for. So if you're watching the film with his commentary turned on, it's a sort of 46-minute long version. It's kind of highlights of the film. We also get the third part of the Cinema Hong Kong documentary. Part 2 is also on this set, on disc 1. And part 3 is looking at the beauties of the Shaw studio. Pretty great. Lots of interviews with Cheng Pei Pei and some of the other early Shaw's actresses. Runs for about 54 minutes long, and all around just really great seeing this full documentary in decent quality across the 2 volumes. We had part 1 was on volume 1, and then part 2 and part 3 are both on volume 2. And then we get, once more, we dive into the incredible archives of the wonderful Frederic Ambrosin. Here he sits down with Caraway around about 2003. And there's a 29-minute interview, which is absolute gold, really, really entertaining. She's on fine form, speaks really kind of passionately, and gives a lot of information that I hadn't heard before. And that's probably, for me, the highlight on this particular disc in terms of extras. We also get an SD presentation of the film, kind of a VHS stub, if you like, which is great to see, because it'll let you know what it was like for all of us who saw the old Made in Hong Kong VHS. They haven't remastered that version, so it's kind of great seeing an SD transfer alongside the glorious new 2K restoration that's been done with this film. We also get an alternate opening sequence. We get the Hong Kong theatrical trailer, digital reissue trailer, and a 30-strong image gallery rounding out the rest of the extras on the disc. Pretty damn cool. Really, really nice to kind of see this movie on the set. It's one I was really excited about when we heard it was going to be on there. One of the pieces of trivia in the book reminds you to listen out for the opening title theme, which is Bitter Lemons from the De Wolf soundtrack, which is also used in the opening of Flag of Iron by Chang Cheh and by Gordon Liu's incredible Shaolin vs. Wu-Tang. The De Wolf library is all over these movies, and it's a really great bit of music. It's kind of nice to kind of hear it here. There is some notes inside here by Simon Abrams inside the book, which borrows quite heavily from an interview that Caraway did for Celestial. You can find that interview in full up on my Patreon page already. I put it up quite some time ago, and it's a great interview. It was originally available through YouTube, but spliced into very small parts, and I've got the full unedited interview up over on the Patreon. Speaking of the Patreon, it's been up and running for a little while. Thank you so much to everybody who's already signed up. So once again, my eternal and extremely humble thanks go out to Kevin Smith, to Johnny Wheats, to Dustin Lewis, to Carlos, to Asian Cinema Guy, to Owen Jones, to Big Movie Freak, to Andy T, to Alistair Dyson, to Bing Bongler, to Andre Denman, and to Cactus Clothesline for all signing up. If you'd like to take a little look and see what's on offer, then do please jump over using the link down below, and you can see the various tiers that are on offer there and what you get at each level. I'd be extremely grateful if you're in a position to help try and support the channel, because it's quite a costly affair running one of these things for the length of time that I have. Thank you to all of you for watching this. I've been the Fanatical Dragon. I will see you on the next one. Take care.